The paper bag felt lighter than usual. Not because it held less food, but because the boy knew exactly how little was inside. A small piece of bread. A half portion of rice. That was it. His only meal for the entire day. The boy walked slowly through the narrow street, his worn shoes scraping against the pavement. The smell of food drifted from nearby shops, teasing his empty stomach. He hadn't eaten since yesterday morning, but he didn't complain. He never did. At home, his mother was sick, and every coin mattered. As he passed a small park near a roadside diner, something made him stop. An elderly couple sat quietly on a bench. Their clothes were clean but old. The man's hands trembled slightly as he held an empty cup. The woman stared at the ground, her shoulders slumped, not from age alone, but from hunger and embarrassment. They weren't begging. They weren't asking anyone for help. They were just waiting. The boy tightened his grip on the paper bag. He told himself to keep walking. "You need this," his mind whispered. "No one will help you if you don't help yourself." He took 3 steps forward, then stopped. He turned back and looked at the couple again. The woman noticed him and forced a small smile, the kind people give when they don't want to be a burden. That smile broke something inside him. Slowly, the boy walked toward them. "Excuse me," he said softly. The elderly man looked up, surprised. "Yes, son." The boy opened the paper bag and held it out with both hands. "You can have this," he said. "I already ate." It was a lie. A small one, but heavy. The woman's eyes filled with tears. "No, no, that's yours." The boy shook his head. "It's okay. Please." After a moment, the man accepted the food. His voice cracked as he spoke. "Thank you, son. You didn't have to do this." The boy just shrugged. "My mom says, if you have something, even a little, you share." He turned and walked away before they could say anything else. What the boy didn't see was the elderly man quietly watching his back, with a thoughtful expression, with respect, and with a calm certainty, because that simple act of kindness would not be forgotten. And by this time tomorrow, the boy's life would change in a way he could never imagine. The boy walked home slower than usual. Without the paper bag in his hands, the hunger felt sharper. Each step made his stomach tighten, but he kept his head down and his pace steady. He had already made his choice, and in his heart there was no regret, only a quiet ache. His house sat at the edge of the neighborhood, small and aging, with paint peeling from the walls. He pushed the door open gently so it wouldn't creak. Inside, the air smelled faintly of medicine and warm water. "Mom," he called softly. From the bedroom came a weak but loving voice. "I'm here, my son." He stepped inside. His mother lay resting, her face pale but calm. She smiled when she saw him, even though she noticed right away that his hands were empty. "Did you eat?" she asked. The boy nodded without hesitation. "Yes," he said. "I'm not hungry." Another lie. A heavier one. She reached for his hand, her fingers thin and warm. "You're a good boy," she said. "Too good for this world sometimes." He smiled back, though his stomach burned. Later that evening, while the boy helped his mother drink water and prepared her medicine, the elderly couple sat in a quiet room not far away. The food the boy had given them rested on a small table between them. The woman looked at the man with emotion in her eyes. "Did you see his face?" she said. "He was hungry." The man nodded slowly. "Yes." And he still chose kindness. He picked up his phone and stared at the screen for a moment, as if deciding something important. Then he made a call. "I saw what I needed to see," he said calmly. "Character doesn't hide. It shows itself when no one is watching." There was a brief pause. "Yes," he continued. "Tomorrow morning." He ended the call and placed the phone down gently. "That boy," he said, "has more wealth in his heart than most people with millions." Back in the neighborhood, night fell quickly. The boy lay on his thin mattress, staring at the ceiling. Hunger twisted inside him, but his mind was calm. He replayed the woman's smile in his head, The way her eyes had lit up when he handed over the food. It was worth it, he thought. Outside, the street was quiet. No signs. No hints. No miracles. Just another night. The boy had no idea that someone powerful now knew his name. No idea that his small, forgotten act had already begun to move something much bigger than himself. Tomorrow would look the same, or so he believed. But somewhere beyond his understanding, plans were already in motion. Plans born not from pity, but from respect. Have you ever helped someone even when you had almost nothing for yourself? Comment yes or no below. Your story might inspire someone today. Morning arrived quietly. No alarms. No knocking. No miracles. Just the thin sound of birds outside the cracked window and the dull ache of hunger pressing harder than the night before. The boy opened his eyes slowly. For a moment, he forgot. Then his stomach reminded him. He sat up, taking a deep breath, as if he could breathe the pain away. He swung his legs off the mattress and stood, steadying himself against the wall. In the small kitchen, there was nothing new. No bread. No rice. Just an empty pot and a cup of water. He drank it slowly, pretending it filled him. His mother stirred from the bedroom. "Are you awake?" she called. "Yes, Mom," he answered quickly, forcing energy into his voice. He helped her sit up, carefully, gently, the way a child shouldn't have to, but often does. She studied his face longer than usual that morning. "You didn't eat last night, did you?" she asked softly. The boy hesitated for half a second, then smiled. "I did. I told you." She didn't argue. She never did. Instead, she reached out and touched his cheek. "One day," she said quietly, "life will be kinder to you than it's been to us." He nodded, though he didn't believe it. Not really. Outside, the neighborhood woke up. Vendors shouted. Buses roared past. Life moved forward without noticing him. He picked up his school bag, old, torn, patched more than once, and stepped outside. Each step felt heavier than the last. At school, the day stretched endlessly. The smell of food from other students' lunches felt unbearable. His head spun once during class, but he clenched his fists under the desk and focused on the board. He refused to complain. Complaining didn't change anything. During lunch break, he sat alone beneath a tree, pretending to read. Other kids laughed nearby, sharing snacks. No one noticed him, and he was used to that. What he didn't know was that somewhere else in the city, the elderly man from the bench sat in a quiet room, reviewing notes on a tablet. Screens showed reports, schedules, and names. The woman stood beside him, arms folded. "Are you sure?" she asked. The man didn't look up. "I've never been more sure of anything." "He could have walked away," she said. "No one would have blamed him." "But he didn't," the man replied. "That's the point." He closed the tablet and stood. His posture was calm, controlled, the posture of someone who didn't need to raise his voice to be heard. "Kindness under comfort is easy," he continued. "Kindness under hunger tells you everything about a person." Back at school, the final bell rang. The boy felt relief mixed with dread. Relief that the day was over. Dread because nothing waited for him at home. As he walked back through the neighborhood, he passed the same park where everything had happened. The bench was empty now. The moment already felt distant, almost unreal. Did that really happen? He wondered. He reached home as the sun dipped low. His mother was asleep, breathing softly. He sat beside her and watched, feeling the familiar weight of responsibility settle on his chest. That night, the boy fell asleep faster than usual. Hunger does that. It exhausts you. His dreams were strange and blurry. Doors opening. Faces he didn't recognize. A knock that echoed but never came. Elsewhere, engines hummed quietly in a secured garage. A black vehicle was prepared, polished, waiting. Instructions were given, simple, precise. "No cameras," the man said. "No spectacle. Just respect." Morning would come soon. For the boy, tomorrow felt no different from yesterday. He had no idea that someone who valued strength, discipline, and honor had taken notice of him. No idea that his quiet sacrifice, made without witnesses, without expectation, had crossed an invisible line. A line that separated those who survive from those who are remembered. And when the sun rose again, the boy's door would be knocked on, not by chance, but by purpose. The knock came early, not loud, not aggressive, just firm enough to be impossible to ignore. The boy sat up in bed instantly, his heart pounding. For a moment, he thought he had dreamed it. Then came the second knock, steady, controlled, deliberate. He glanced at his mother. She was awake now too, pushing herself up with effort. "Who could that be?" she asked quietly. The boy didn't answer. No one ever came to their door this early. Not neighbors. Not friends. Certainly not strangers. He walked toward the door slowly, each step filled with uncertainty. Through the thin wood, he could hear faint movement outside. Footsteps, the rustle of clothing, the low hum of an engine idling somewhere close. He reached for the handle. Before opening it, he paused. For reasons he couldn't explain, a strange feeling washed over him, not fear exactly, but something heavier, like standing on the edge of a moment that could change everything. He opened the door. The first thing he saw was the street. Then the vehicle. A black SUV stood parked just outside their small home, clean, polished, completely out of place in a worn-down neighborhood. Sunlight reflected off its surface like a mirror. Then he looked up. A tall man stood calmly at the door. He wore simple, dark clothing. No suit. No flashy jewelry. Just a quiet presence that filled the space without effort. His posture was relaxed, but there was something unmistakably powerful about the way he stood, like someone who had spent a lifetime mastering control. Behind him, another man stood a few steps back, silent and observant. The boy swallowed. "Yes?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The man smiled, slow, respectful. "Good morning," he said. His voice was deep, calm, measured. "Is this your home?" The boy nodded. "My name is—" The man paused, glancing briefly at the house, at the cracked walls, at the boy's worn shoes. Then his eyes returned, steady and sincere. "I'm here because of something you did yesterday." The boy's stomach dropped. Yesterday. His mind raced. Had he done something wrong? Had he broken a rule? His hand tightened on the doorframe. I didn't do anything bad," he said quickly. "I swear." The man raised a hand gently. "I know." Neighbors began to appear, first one, then another. Curtains moved. Doors cracked open. People whispered as they noticed the SUV. "Who's that? Why are they here? Is something wrong?" The boy's mother stepped behind him, placing a hand on his shoulder. The man turned slightly, acknowledging her presence with a respectful nod. "Ma'am," he said, "you've raised a remarkable son." Her eyes widened. "I don't understand." Neither did the boy. The man took a slow step forward, careful not to cross the threshold uninvited. "Yesterday," he said, "an elderly couple was sitting near a park. Hungry. Tired. Invisible to most people." The boy's breath caught. "You walked past them," the man continued. "You could have kept going." The boy said nothing. "But you didn't." Silence fell over the small street. The man reached into his pocket, not abruptly, not threateningly, and pulled out a pair of sunglasses. He removed them slowly. That's when a neighbor gasped. Another whispered, barely audible but unmistakable. "Is that Steven Seagal?" The whisper spread like electricity. Heads leaned forward. Phones came out. The boy didn't understand the name yet, but he felt the shift in the air, the way people suddenly stood straighter, the way curiosity turned into awe. Steven Seagal looked back at the boy, unfazed by the murmurs. "You gave them your food," he said. "Your only meal." The boy looked down. "They needed it." Steven nodded once. "Exactly." He turned slightly, gesturing toward the SUV. "That elderly man you helped. He's someone I trust deeply. Someone who's taught me a lot about life." The boy's legs felt weak. Steven continued, his tone calm but heavy with meaning. "He told me everything. Not just what you did, but how you did it. No cameras. No asking for thanks. You walked away hungry and never looked back. The street was silent now. Even the birds seemed to have stopped. Steven took another step forward and lowered himself slightly, bringing his eyes closer to the boy's level, not above him. In my world, he said, people talk a lot about strength, about power, about discipline. He paused. But real strength, he added, is choosing kindness when it costs you something. The boy's eyes burned. He didn't know why. He had never expected anything. Never imagined this moment. Never thought that a simple decision made out of instinct could lead to a man like this standing at his door. Steven straightened slowly. This conversation, he said, is just beginning. And with that, the weight of the moment settled in fully. The boy's life, quiet, unseen, ordinary, was standing at the edge of something extraordinary. Do you believe small acts of kindness can change a person's entire destiny? Comment yes or no below, and tell us why. The street felt different now. Not louder, quieter. As if every sound had learned to wait. The boy stood frozen in the doorway, his heart pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. Neighbors lined the edges of the street, pretending not to stare while doing exactly that. Phones were raised but forgotten, lowered again out of instinctive respect for the calm authority standing before them. Steven Seagal turned slightly, addressing not the crowd, but the boy. "Do you know why I'm really here?" he asked. The boy shook his head slowly. Steven nodded, as if he expected that answer. "Yesterday, you made a decision that most adults don't make in a lifetime." He gestured gently toward the street behind him. "You saw two people who had nothing to offer you in return. No money. No influence. No reward." The boy swallowed. "And still," Steven continued, "you chose them over yourself." He paused, letting the words settle. "I've spent my life training discipline," he said. "Teaching people how to be strong. But discipline without compassion is empty." The boy finally found his voice. "I didn't do anything special," he said quietly. "Anyone would have done the same." Steven smiled, not amused, but respectful. "That's where you're wrong." He turned to the watching neighbors. "Most people think they would do the same. But thinking and doing are very different things." The elderly couple from the park stepped forward now, emerging from behind the SUV. The woman's eyes filled with tears the moment she saw the boy again. "It was you," she whispered. The boy's eyes widened. "You're—" The man nodded. "Yes." The woman took the boy's hands in hers. "You gave us food when you had none. You didn't even ask our names." The boy felt his throat tighten. "I just didn't want you to be hungry." Steven watched silently as the moment unfolded. Then he spoke again, his voice steady but firm. "People often believe life rewards money, fame, or power," he said. "But life respects character." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small, worn notebook. It didn't look expensive. It didn't look important. "This," he said, holding it up, "belonged to my teacher. A man who taught me something I've never forgotten." He opened the notebook and read aloud. "When someone chooses what is right over what is easy, they reveal who they truly are." Steven closed the notebook and looked at the boy. "You revealed yourself yesterday." The boy's mother stepped forward now, trembling slightly. "Sir," she said, "my son didn't do this for attention." Steven turned to her and bowed his head slightly. "I know, ma'am. That's why I'm here." He placed the notebook back in his jacket and took a small step closer. "I didn't come to hand out money like a prize," he said. "I came to make sure something important didn't go unnoticed." The boy's breathing slowed, his fear melting into something else, confusion mixed with emotion. Steven knelt down, resting one knee on the ground so they were eye to eye. "Look at me," he said gently. The boy did. "You don't owe me anything," Steven continued. "You don't owe the world anything." He paused, then added, "But the world owes you a chance." Murmurs spread softly through the crowd. Steven stood again and turned slightly to the man beside the SUV. "Are the arrangements ready?" he asked. The man nodded once. Steven looked back at the boy. "This isn't about changing who you are," he said. "It's about making sure life doesn't punish you for being good." The boy felt tears roll down his face, and he didn't wipe them away. For the first time, someone powerful wasn't asking him to be stronger. They were protecting his kindness. And in that moment, the truth became clear. This visit wasn't a coincidence. It wasn't charity. It wasn't luck. It was recognition. And what came next would not just change the boy's circumstances. It would protect his future. The crowd slowly began to thin, but the weight of the moment stayed. Steven stepped back toward the SUV, speaking quietly with a man beside him. No raised voices. No dramatic gestures. Just short, deliberate sentences. The kind spoken by people who were used to action, not promises. The boy stood near the doorway, unsure where to look or what to do with his hands. His mother held his arm, as if grounding him in place, afraid that if she let go, the moment might disappear. Steven returned. "May I come inside?" he asked politely. The boy nodded quickly and stepped aside. Inside, the house was modest. One small living area, a thin curtain separating the bedroom, a table with a chipped corner. Steven took it all in without judgment. His eyes didn't linger on what was missing. They focused on what was there. He sat down, not on the only chair, but on the edge of the table, keeping the space respectful. "I want to be clear," he said calmly. "What happens next is not a reward." The boy looked confused. "It's responsibility," Steven continued. "Mine." He turned to the boy's mother. "Your son has something rare. If the world keeps taking from him without giving back, it will either break him or change him." She nodded slowly, tears forming. "I've been afraid of that." Steven reached into a folder and placed a few documents on the table. He didn't slide them forward dramatically. He simply set them down, as if they had always belonged there. "There will be support for his education," he said. "Books. School fees. Transportation. Not luxury. Stability." The boy's eyes widened. "Sir, Steven raised a hand gently. "Listen first." He continued, "Your medical care," he said to the mother, "will be handled. Proper treatment. No shortcuts." Her breath caught. "Why?" she whispered. Steven looked at her steadily. "Because raising a child like him costs more than money. And you've already paid enough." Silence filled the room. The boy shook his head slowly. "But I didn't help them to get anything." "I know," Steven replied immediately. "That's why this matters." He leaned forward slightly. "If you had asked for something, this wouldn't be happening." The boy absorbed the words, his chest tight. Steven stood and walked toward the door, motioning for the boy to follow him outside. They stepped onto the porch, away from listening ears. "Look at me," Steven said. The boy did. "Promise me one thing," Steven continued. "No matter what changes, you don't let this world teach you that kindness is weakness." The boy swallowed hard. "I promise." Steven nodded once. "Good." He placed a hand briefly on the boy's shoulder, not heavy, not possessive. Reassuring. "This help ends if you stop being who you are," he said. "Not because I'll take it away, but because you won't need it anymore." The boy didn't fully understand, but he felt the truth in it. Steven stepped back. "I won't be visiting again," he added. "Not like this." The boy's heart sank for a moment. "But," Steven continued, "you won't be alone." The SUV door opened. The man inside handed Steven a small envelope. "This contains contact information," Steven said, giving it to the boy. "Not for favors. For guidance." He looked around the neighborhood one last time. "Remember," he said quietly, "the goal isn't to escape where you came from." He met the boy's eyes again. "It's to return one day and lift someone else up." The engine started. As the SUV pulled away, the street slowly returned to normal. Neighbors whispered. Life resumed. But for the boy and his mother, nothing felt the same. That evening, the boy sat beside his mother as she slept peacefully for the first time in weeks. He wasn't thinking about money, or fame, or the man who had knocked on their door. He was thinking about the bench, the paper bag, and the choice he made when no one was watching. For the first time, hunger hadn't won. And for the first time, The future didn't feel like something to fear. It felt like something to protect. The morning after the SUV left, the street looked the same. Same cracked pavement. Same faded walls. Same quiet routines. But inside the small house, something had shifted. The boy woke up early, not from hunger this time, but from a strange sense of calm. Sunlight slipped through the window, landing softly on the floor. His mother was still asleep, breathing evenly, peacefully. That alone felt like a miracle. He sat at the edge of his bed, replaying everything in his mind. The knock. The words. The way kindness had come back, not loudly, not with pride, but with respect. By afternoon, whispers had traveled far beyond the neighborhood. Someone had posted a short video. Just a few seconds. No clear faces. No explanations. Only a caption. This is what real character looks like. The internet did the rest. People shared the story, not as gossip, but as inspiration. Comments flooded in from strangers around the world. Kindness still exists. This restored my faith in humanity. Teach our children this. But the boy didn't see any of it. He was too busy living. Days passed. Then weeks. School felt different. Not easier, but steadier. He had books that weren't falling apart. Shoes that didn't hurt his feet. His mother smiled more, laughed sometimes. Her strength slowly returned. Yet the boy remained the same. He still stopped to help neighbors. Still shared when he could. Still sat quietly, listening more than speaking. One afternoon, he returned to the park. The same bench. The same place. He sat down and closed his eyes. He didn't come looking for thanks. He didn't come hoping for another miracle. He came to remember. Because deep inside, he understood something now, something most people never learn. That moment on the bench wasn't important because someone powerful noticed. It was important because he had chosen who he wanted to be. Years later, the story would be told in different ways. Some would say it was luck. Some would say it was destiny. Some would say it was kindness rewarded. But the truth was simpler. A hungry boy chose compassion over survival. And the world answered, not with applause, not with noise, but with a chance. And the boy never forgot the lesson. Not when life became easier. Not when challenges returned. Not when he stood in a position to help others. Whenever he faced a choice, he remembered the paper bag. And he chose again. If you were that boy, hungry, alone, with only one meal, would you still choose kindness, even if no one ever found out? Comment your answer below. And if this story moved you, subscribe for more powerful fictional stories that remind us who we are meant to be.